Good afternoon, everyone. This is LadyDragon speaking. It is... What time is it now? It's 2:31 p.m. It's Sunday, January 26th. Continuing our keynote from CES. And now it's going to be... Should be very interesting. This one's going to be with MGM Resorts and Mastercard. Looking forward to this one. Là, on va regarder une keynote de Mastercard MGM Resort. J'ai hâte de voir ça. Here we go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Storyteller's Stage. We're going to jump right back into it. The next session will explore the future of representation. Technology meets humanity in advertising. To guide this conversation, please welcome to the stage Shelley Zalis, the CEO of the Female Quotient.
Oh my God, you guys all got to move in a little bit. We're gonna get you all involved in this conversation. So I'm preparing you. I'm very unscripted, but anyone that wants to move in is going to get the mic, too. Does that scare you? All right, so let's get started because we have a lot to talk about. But representation, and that was a key word. So we're going to talk about representation matters. Technology, we all know, is hot and getting hotter and hotter, and it's not the future. It is so now. And then the last word was humanity. And, you know, technology, as amazing as it is, it still doesn't have that human soul, that heart, that touch. So we're going to combine all three of these things, how representation meets tech meets humanity. Okay? So ready to go? You all ready to go? Okay. So let's engage. And I'm going to give you guys a chance to also get involved if you want to take the mic. They're going to be floating mics. So start thinking about what really matters to you. And I'm going to have you each introduce yourself. Tell me who you are, what you do, and I promised you I go off script, so I would not be the chief troublemaker if I followed script. So we're going to do that again. Tell me what we might not know about you on your LinkedIn profile. So I'm going to give you a minute to think. I'm going to give you 10 seconds to think, since I'm going off script already a little sooner than I expected. But let's just shake it up a shit. Let's shake shit up. Let's have some fun. We're going to start with you, Kristen.
Shelley, thank you for throwing that curveball to get us started.
You're welcome.
So, hi everyone. My name is Kristen Nook. I'm the SVP of Enterprise Sales at XR Extreme Reach. We are a technology platform that unites and unifies the creative workflow. We do everything from categorizing creative to storing it to distributing it across linear and digital across 140 markets. So that's who I am and what I do today. And if I'm going to dig in for a fun fact, I'm going to go back to what one of my first jobs was as a teenager in high school. I worked at a children's party center.
Children's party center?
Yes. So it was like, think ball pit, trampolines, you know. So kids would go get wild, and then you'd bring them into the party room, and I'd get to dance the Macarena.
I might ask you to demonstrate. So watch what you say.
I'm picking the wrong fun fact. I would dress up like Elmo and Barney. So this is how I got my start in the working world, and I'm not sure how that translates here today, but
it translates a lot to humanity.
Yeah.
And connection. So
Yeah.
I love that fun fact.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I used to work at Universal Studios selling the sippy things with the sippy straws in the heat. And it was amazing. It was so, first of all, most of them were half empty, I'm just saying. And I didn't drink them, pre-drink them. But it was an amazing job because I understood service and people. And I loved it. So I get that. Thank you.
I don't know how I'm going to follow that fun fact. Hi, everyone. I'm Ashley Menschner. I'm the SVP of Media Strategy and Engagement at the Ad Council. For those that aren't familiar with the Ad Council, we are a leading nonprofit that has been addressing the country's most critical social issues for the last 8 decades or so. So we like to view ourselves as a convener across the industry, media partners, tech, advertising, come together to do good, right? And ultimately create a society where everyone can thrive. And so we're an accelerator for change. And again, we address issues such as the mental health crisis and gun violence prevention. My fun fact, I think, would be, people that work with me know this, but I think people might be surprised that I'm like a huge hip hop culture fan. So I love hip hop, love Wu-Tang, love Tribe Called Quest. So I feel like it's just a fun thing that I like to dive into and watch all sorts of documentaries. And it's just, I love hip hop culture and kind of how it was born and the background behind that.
Love that. KJ, you're up.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. First of all, Shelley, thanks for having me on this wonderful panel. I feel humbled and honored to be here with this amazing crew. Yeah, so I run media and innovation at Mastercard. Very excited to have that role. I think there's a lot that we're doing in this space. We'll talk about it today. You know, kind of fun fact just to tie Mastercard back in. I kind of got into the advertising and marketing space because of my aunt many years ago. She was a longtime advertiser and was running new business at McCann. And
At where?
At McCann. And she came up with the Priceless campaign 26 years ago.
Wow. I'm obsessed with that campaign. But also, the reason I'm having you all unplug is because that is what a human leader is all about. Like your stories matter. Give us yours, Alicia.
So my name's Alicia Pope. I am Head of Strategy and Development for our sports and sponsorship team here at MGM Resorts. So we sit here at Aria, one of our fabulous properties.
Just saying. Whoop, whoop.
Yep. Shout out. And we've made some pretty big bets in the sports line and in the live entertainment and live event space. So that's heavily what I focus on. And a fun fact about myself is every Sunday, I play in this amazing women's basketball league. So if you look at my LinkedIn, you'll know that I am a former college basketball player, but I still get out there. I'm one of the older ones out there. But I play in this amazing women's basketball league. And the best part about it is that this is the first time ever in my whole entire pickup career that I've played in a women's only league. So it's something I'm very proud of that exists here in Las Vegas. So.
Wow. Did you used to beat the guys?
Always.
Yeah. Your three-point shot?
For everyone, I'm from the East Coast, from Maryland, Sligo Creek Park. So
there you go.
you know.
Okay, so I love that because, you know, one of the things we talk a lot about in the Acquire Lounge is it's the place for conscious leaders. And when people say, oh, unconscious bias, it was unconscious, I'm like, well, you just used the word unconscious, so you're conscious, right? And once you're conscious, you have a choice, do something or don't. And so I'd like to talk about intentional action for change because we talked about representation matters, we talked about media, and representation really is how reflection happens. You see what you see, and if you don't see it, you don't. And reflection is really how media really can turn the table, and that is where culture really meets the road. So if you could each give me a little story of how you are activating with intentionality representation in what you do. And, you know, Kristen, I'm going to start with you because, you know, we talk about representation matters and you treasure what you measure. And you did launch RX recently, which is a representation index. So talk about that a little bit and how you're activating that.
Thanks, Shelley. Yeah, at XR, we're in a unique position because we do creative asset management across the top brands, and we deliver them across both linear and digital. So we're really the only platform that can do that. And because of this, we are in a unique position, especially now that we're in the age of AI, where we're tagging all of the commercials to understand the gender expression, age, body and skin tone. And we've just launched the Representation Index by XR. So it's RX by XR, a little bit of a tongue twister. but it is so important. So every brand can come to us and get their score, so that they can understand how representative is my advertising. And the reality is if ads are representative and they resonate with people, they work and they stick. So we're just getting started. We just launched this 3 months ago in collaboration with the Female Quotient, and it is so, so important.
And I just want to jump in on that because, you know, and Jay, I'm going to go to you next, just to give you a heads up, because you measure what matters and with all of your advertising. And we launched the GEM score, the gender equality measure, with ANA under the See Her movement. And it was measuring gender, but it is asking questions. And because you're AI tagged, you're able to, you know, use technology to get the RX scores, you know, by across the vitals, you know, from, as you mentioned, the gender expression and skin tone, and you're now launching accessibility, which will be amazing, and authority. So it's beyond just gender representation. And so we say it's the prescription for inclusive measurement, which is really exciting. So Jay, I want to go to you with that because you have been very instrumental with Mastercard in measuring what matters as well and being conscious about improving when you need it and going bold and out there with most of your advertising, which is amazing. Can you talk about if you do use any kind of measurement for representation, and then what else you're doing in that space, because you're doing so much?
Yeah, no, thanks for that. And it's great to see how the industry is evolving and you know, kind of the work that we're collectively doing behind that. I mean, we definitely subscribe to, you know, if you can't measure it, it doesn't exist. So, you know, I think that's absolutely right. And, you know, the idea of creating a shared framework for the industry, I think, is critical, because I think we all need the same language and the same framework for us to drive this collectively. You know, we saw this in the world of brand safety and sustainability, which we've been very focused on as well. You know, so when it comes to representation and equality and inclusivity, you know, it's near and dear to us at Mastercard because it's built into our mission. We are an inclusive company by nature. Our mission is to drive, connect, and power a more inclusive digital economy for everybody, everywhere. And I think when it's hardwired into the company in that way, you know, it allows us to explore authentically, you know, kind of what that means for us as a company, even beyond just the advertising. I think, you know, I'll just use an example of 2 products that we've built because we're an inclusive company. You know, I think it just becomes, you know, like I said, kind of hardwired into everybody inside the company on how we approach it and finding white spaces where there might be gaps. So one is the true name card. I don't know if people kind of know the background, but you know, there's this disconnect at times within the LGBTQIA+ community between, you know, kind of your legal name and the name that's on your card and the name that you identify with, and that can cause a lot of friction, you know, when you are at payment. And it is not easy, quite frankly, to change your name on your card. It requires you to legally change your name, which is a huge process. So we worked with the communities and actually created a true name card specifically to address this. And you know, it's changed, you know, for so many people, just the friction that would have to go in and the uncomfortableness that happens when you pay. And you know, that's something that you don't want to have to think about. And you know, being able to do that.
I just want to say, one of the things, just, you know, it was a taboo topic, but you're making it not a taboo topic. And so you're giving people the comfort to already take care of that for them. Yeah,
you know, and the reason I bring that up and kind of talking about a product, you know, for us to do these things and to do these types of measurements, it's not just a KPI for a KPI's sake. You know, it has to make sense for the business, and it has to be authentic. You know, and so ultimately, you know, that is what drives us, and that's the mission. You know, being able to bring more people into the digital economy and to take the friction out of payments is good for business, but it's also good for humanity.
You know, interestingly enough, I just wrote an article called Maiden Names, encouraging women to keep their maiden names, because the algorithm drops you when you change your name. You get lost.
Right.
Like, my married name is Shelley Fleshner. My maiden name is Shelley Zalis. I've kept Shelley Zalis for my whole life. I'm turning 63. Thank God, because the AI algorithm doesn't recognize the two disconnected names.
Yes.
So if I change my name, my history would be lost.
Right. That's exactly right.
Why do they make it so hard? Like, the systems make it so hard to change your name. I tried to do that, and I had to go to court to, like, publish your name if you want to change it. I wanted to move my married name to my middle name so I didn't lose it, or my maiden name. Couldn't do it, so I ended up just being like, oh, that's too difficult, so I'm going to take my married name.
Right, okay.
But that's a problem.
It is a problem. Okay, so talk about what you're doing, and then Jay, afterwards I'm going to remind you, I want to hear about your AI one too.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
I'll just talk a little bit about kind of what you're building on, or what you were saying about at the Ad Council. It's really important. Like I said, our mission is to create a culture where everyone can thrive, no matter what you look like, what your gender, what your ethnicity, race. And so for us as leaders, it's about challenging assumptions and asking the right questions and developing content that reflects those audiences that we're trying to impact. And so one example I can share is when we were developing our recent work for our Love Has No Labels campaign, which is our diversity, equity,
By the way,
and inclusion campaign.
genius campaign.
Anyone seen the Dancing Skeletons? Hopefully you remember our campaign. But we were launching a new effort for the LGBT plus community, and the target audience was our selective equality believers, which is the 80 million Americans who say that they care about social issues, but are selective in what those issues are. And your assumptions would be, what does that person look like? Okay, well, they're probably conservative, they're older, maybe white. And when we went into research with RGA and kind of started to look at the target audience, we were shocked that actually some of those selective equality believers over-indexed in multicultural spaces. So Asian, Hispanic, they were actually pretty conservative, not conservative, in the middle in terms of political views. And so we had to shift and pivot kind of how we were developing the content and making sure that we talk to RGA about who's working on this effort, who do we have at the table, who are those leaders making the decisions on the campaigns, because it's not who we thought it was that we were trying to reach. And so I think that happens a lot in our campaign development, and we're just really careful about making sure that we have diverse voices and perspectives at the table when we're developing our campaigns.
I love that. And I think it's, so many people say, oh, well, we have this slate of diversity, but then when it comes to sitting at that table, they're not at the table. Like, what? That's not okay. So I think you're holding people very accountable. Okay, Alicia, let's go into assumptions. You're the queen of that. Let's go there.
Yes, assumptions are really a very, very interesting thing. I think, when you're looking at audience or you're looking at content, like, you can assume something and it's a very comfortable space. A lot of them are rooted in similarity biases. A lot of them are rooted in stereotypes, to be quite frank. But they actually, I think if marketers and AI will support in this, but it will only get us so far. That's where the humanity piece comes into it. So you might be able to run it through AI to identify the gap, but then you have to bring in the human element to truly understand where the area of opportunity is, and you have to exploit because that's what's going to grow the pie. So for instance, I think about something like if someone really wears a cowboy hat, right? They generically probably want a pickup truck, and therefore that's what our commercial should look like, and we probably can envision what we think that person will look like. I think in the future, the advertisers and the marketing folks that are going to be successful, that are really going to drive revenue for the businesses that they are running, they are going to challenge those assumptions. They're gonna highlight the diversity and the dynamics. And I think someone who's always ahead of their time that brought this out and is Beyonce. When you look at her and a lot of what she's doing surrounding around country music, we are going to catch up eventually. But what she has done for that space is she's identified a white space. She's brought a whole new market, and she's made the pie bigger. And she's challenging all of those assumptions. And therefore, more brands are going to be able to reach people that they haven't been able to reach before. And I would look at the data, yes, and understand it to identify the white space, like you said, Jay, which is big. But then on top of that, let's bring back the humanity piece into it. Let's get the right folks in the room so we have the right team together. And then that's where really opportunity kicks in.
I love that. And, and I think that when we talk about Beyonce, who has now expanded the music market with country, Taylor Swift has expanded the NFL market with
yes.
Taylor.
Yes, new fan base, new fan bases tuning in.
Yeah, you know what? But it is true because women watch football too. You know, we sometimes don't think about that. And so, Jay, I want to go to technology and how we're all embracing technology inside of our companies. And do you think it's going to replace you, or are you integrating it so that it's expanding you and letting you have your human side to have more time to do those things?
That feels like a loaded question. I'm gonna hope for the latter. You know, but I think it
we
needs
can
to
go
be.
have long coffee talks.
It needs to be. I mean, you know, we say that it's not AI that's going to replace you. It's your colleague that knows how to leverage AI that's going to replace you.
We say it's women.
That too.
How to use it.
That too. And ultimately,
and Jay.
yeah. I mean, we all need to really understand how to get the most out of this technology, because it makes us all, you know, it gives us superpowers. You know, right now it seems like the initial use case is around productivity. And, you know, I certainly see that on a day-to-day basis, and we're starting to see how we can kind of integrate these tools to make some of that rootness work that we do, you know, kind of offload it so we can start to upskill and spend more time on, you know, kind of the strategy and kind of the higher order business. You know, I think, you know, given that this is a conversation around, you know, kind of tech meets humanity and marketing, you know, you kind of teed up, you know, kind of one of the products that we worked on was actually born here 2 years ago. And, you know, I think it's a good use case of how we're thinking about AI inside the company. So we launched in December the Mastercard Small Business AI chatbot. And, you know, just to give kind of a little context of like where it came from and you know, kind of how it came to be, you know, when Gen AI first kind of came out, you know, there was a decent amount of bias that still existed in it, and it still exists. But, you know, we realized that there was some power that we could leverage from it. And ultimately, you know, we are in the business of empowering small business owners and especially underrepresented communities within small business. We have a lot of programs that we've been focused on past decade or so. The big insight is that, you know, the differentiator for a company to fail or succeed tends to be mentorship. You know, about 90% of companies can fail within the first year without good mentorship, but only kind of 1 in 4 people actually have a mentor. Because it's really tough to scale mentorship, you know, have somebody that's walked in your shoes, more so if you're a female or a female person of color. And what we set out to do, we thought actually AI could scale mentorship, but Gen AI itself was broken because it was biased and it wasn't inclusive. And so we just spent the last year and a half actually, you know, kind of building our own LLM. We created a media coalition to retrain a model. We've been working with Howard University to test it and train it, and working with a huge group of influencers and people to actually, you know, kind of bring some humanity back into it. So it is a small business AI chatbot that can help you no matter what phase you are in your business, but it also connects you with real mentorship as well. And so, you know, we are trying to figure out how to blend, you know, kind of the technology with community. Ultimately, it is about driving community to scale that mentorship.
I just love that example so much because it is such a great way to activate AI, matching, scale, growth, and of course, you have also so much MasterCard historical data, you know, which is representative. Exactly. Versus the data that we know bias in, bias out. So I think that it's such a great application for it. Does anyone else have an example of how you are using technology inside of your companies?
Yeah, I can hop in with some examples of RX and what we're doing to help shine a light on where we can do better as an advertising community. So specifically, if you look at the automotive marketplace, and Shelley, keep me honest on this stat, I believe it's 95% of women determine auto purchases.
95% of automotive decisions are made by women.
Perfect. Thank you. I knew Shelley would say that
Said it right.
much more seamlessly than I would.
But by the way, 85% of consumer purchase decisions made by women. So it is higher in automotive decisions.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and then if you look at the RX scores, particularly in the automotive category, gender expression is at 39. So the scoring is from 1 to 100, and the lower the score means the less representative the ad is. So if you look at that category as a whole, the ads that are being shown are not necessarily representative of those decision makers. And on the flip side, if you look at the beauty category, that pops high on gender expression, makes sense, right? But it pops low on age. And I gotta tell you, every year I spend more and more money on beauty products because
I can tell you,
feel
I
like
spend a hell of a lot
So,
more than you do.
So it just, our data is highlighting, I think, some of these assumptions that marketers are potentially making when they're putting their creative out there. So we know that when folks see ads that resonate with them, that they're that much more effective. So
That's awesome. Thank you.
I think it's just going to help, to your original point around efficiencies and allowing people to do the work that we really want to be doing. So for the Ad Council, during our COVID-19 vaccine education campaign, we were really trying to figure out what were the messages that were resonating across the country to get people educated about the vaccine. Not to go take it, that's your own personal decision, but to just learn, right? And what resonated in rural Texas is going to be very different than New York City. But our teams, to get that information and the insights was clunky, right? And so it took a while to get it, and eventually we did, and we would pivot and put out new content and new assets. But AI for nonprofits like the Ad Council, where we're getting the messages to the right people with the right cultural context in a faster, quicker way, is going to be really clutch for us, and I'm so excited about it.
I just want to add one thing about COVID and the campaigns you built around vaccines. Was so incredibly important, because one of the things that, COVID, the workplace has not changed in over 100 years. Nothing changed until COVID. Right. And all of a sudden, that urgency forced us into rapid transformation from technology to how we work, to how we lead, to everything. Boom. Yep. And what was crazy about COVID was we did not have representation in the administrators of the COVID vaccine. And so it was kind of a wow factor epiphany, because, we all went to screens and, we're all living in bubbles with masks on our face. But a lot of people did not want to take the vaccine because they did not see themselves in the giving of the vaccine. Right. And it was a really big issue. And that was a big aha moment for us of why it matters, not just in the design of product, because of course that matters a lot, but also in the people behind the scenes and the experts, and you believe what you see. Right. If you can see it, you can be it. If you can see it, you want it, and you also see yourself reflected. So you're hearing it, the messenger and who's sharing that information with you is really important. So I think, for that specific campaign, we had descendants of the Tuskegee study and come and talk about, what their ancestors had to, gone through when it was, related to the syphilis study, but then have them talk about what was the education they were doing for themselves on the vaccine. And then we made sure that we were getting that in the hands of, Black Americans that might be questioning. Or working, in the faith community where, we had faith leaders talking about, this is what I'm asking. These are the questions I'm asking. Again, I'm not telling you to get it, but this is just what I'm thinking about, and these were the myths that maybe I thought that were busted. So it's really important to do that. I want to ask you a question, Kristen, about XR before I go to Alicia on this. When you were just talking that, because you measure content across all platforms, not just 30-second spots or linear TV, you're across the board. Can you measure words, or does it need video?
We can pick up words, we can do closed captioning, we can make ads accessible, we do all sorts of...
So if it's like a radio spot, can you measure that too?
Yes.
Okay, I
absolutely.
never asked you that question, and I was just curious, because language matters so much, and there's so much bias in the language. I always say, male allies. No, leadership allies. It shouldn't be about gender, because that creates the imposter syndrome when we say that, or, behind every great man is a great woman, like beside it. Like, so I just want to know if you can measure words, which, okay, that's good to know. Okay, Alicia, you're up.
So when I think about technology really in our space as it relates to, being premier entertainment company, there's two areas that come to mind, which I think are a little bit unique. We're one of the few reasons people are still getting together in person, right? So what does that technology look like when you are having an immersive experience, or what is going to make that concert even better for you? So those are areas where we're looking to leverage more technology to make sure that that differentiator, which is MGM and Las Vegas, continues to bring people here on property. So that's one side of it. The other side of it, which I think the group has really touched upon and hinted a little bit, and I really think that this is once some of the biases stripped of AI, and this is direction it's really going to support, as it relates to personalization. I think as we look forward, people are going to anticipate and expect that their content is personalized, right? It's like we know the robots are here. We know that they're listening. We're okay that they're listening. Now we're feeding the robot, right? So it's really, people are going to expect that personalization in the content that they're experiencing, and AI should be able to support along with the data in terms of how we're determining what that personalization means and making sure that it is inclusive and we're representing all of the facets of the consumer base.
I'm sitting here thinking as you're talking that, technology, and especially AI, started as descriptive. We started with search and, the descriptive, and now we move into the predictive, right? And then we go to prescriptive because we can, maybe move into the optimization by having all of this data. So Jay, how are you, thinking about the future of, AI and tech and all the new products and things that you're building?
Yeah, I'll just pick up on what you said, because we agree. I mean, I feel like one of the buzzwords this week is kind of agentic AI.
Yep.
Right? And, we kind of see this world of consumers starting to offload some of their maybe daily tasks to their AI agent.
I want a digital twin.
And,
For sure.
when that comes to product purchases, that could be a scary place for us as marketers, where we're not, as brands, talking to consumers anymore. We're talking to a consumer's AI agent and that algorithm. And that has the possibility of, being a different type of marketing decision and how you kind of get into that algorithm to begin with. And, kind of we see a world where brand becomes the differentiator, and brand is more important than it's ever been. Otherwise, it could be a race to the bottom, and, kind of just algorithms talking with algorithms, maybe, making purchase decisions based on factors that aren't necessarily that important to the person itself. And, ultimately, you have to create a brand and products that people can self-identify with. And I think that, when we talk about representation, and, maybe some of the assumptions that sit behind that, I think, we are moving from a world where, we were targeting based on broad demographics and psychographics, adults 18 to 49 that live, kind of in, areas. That's not a real person. We are getting to the point, even with hyper-personalization, that I think people are self-identifying, kind of based on their need states, based on their passions, and ultimately it's about those communities and those passions that really they emotionally connect with. And I think, that is a different way for us to connect with people. Not as consumers, as people that we serve.
That's why we need to change from consumers to people.
That's right.
To humans, which is so incredibly true. And, also, we're no longer in a push world. We're in a pull world.
That's right.
So, I mean, hello. We would be leaving a lot of money on the table if we don't really understand that. And lean in a minute, everyone. I'm going to tell you a secret. You ready for a secret? You're not going to believe my secret. I don't see you leaning in. Lean in, and I'm going to tell you my secret. This is just amongst us in the room. And I just learned this recently by my girlfriend Sharon, who is an investor in biotech and all of that kind of stuff. Okay, ready for the secret? Mice don't menstruate. Does anyone understand what I just said? All experimentation has been done on lab rats. Okay? Femtech, health tech, hormones. If mice don't menstruate, how the hell are we going to use all that historical data and all that kind of stuff for all the new things moving forward when we're talking about data and bias in, bias out, and data inputs with lab rats when we're getting misdiagnosed? And so, Jay, I'm just highlighting that because you talked about exactly that, and that's why that historical data that you have is lived experience. You have real data purchases from all of your cardholders and all of that. That is real data. But if we're going to use data that is already biased to predict the future based off the past, we are screwed, literally. Mice don't menstruate. Stay tuned for more to come on that. Whoever thought about that? It never came up before. I thought that was fascinating. Okay. Did everyone get their answer to
There
that?
were other ones. I feel like you were talking about this on your tour, Shelley, too, because it stuck with me when you said that. But there was a couple other products, too, that you mentioned that were built for women by men.
Oh.
Or built, I can't remember even what they were. I don't know if you do.
Seatbelts are just not comfortable on boobs.
Yeah.
They're just not.
Exactly.
I mean, let's just be honest. We have men and women in this. Comfortable because it's straight, but airbags. Yep. Airbags is another example. More deaths are caused for women in airbags because they were tested on male dummies and male anatomy.
I thought that was fascinating.
Escalators. I mean, you all can relate. Anyone that wears heels with little skinny things, it gets stuck in the cracks. I mean, and that's really dangerous.
Yeah.
I mean, if I were wearing things you have to tie and untie, I'm not going to tell you what could happen. I mean, disaster.
All the things that we bring up here, though, I think we should challenge ourselves to think about them in the context of technology and AI. Because to be 100% transparent, that's my biggest concern as how I show up about AI, is everything you guys describe in technology. I am kind of concerned that myself, the group I'm part of, what I represent, my family, will not show up for all the things that you describe. So I think we sit here and we're you know, escalators and seat belts and the wheel, but like just for the group, for all of us here, we need to make the jump. We need to make the connection because we have an opportunity here with technology to do it differently, like to get the right people at the table. You know, we have a very diverse population coming up. It's a lot of different experiences. A lot of different folks have been educated in different ways. So kind of the excuses should be gone now. So that I would challenge.
Say it louder.
Yes, for those in the back.
But I mean, it is so incredibly true, which is why we're back to being conscious. And it's not DEI of letters of the alphabet to fill quotas or blah, 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 because it's nice to do. It is important for business.
Yes.
And diversity for innovation, diversity behind the camera, in front of the camera, in the room, in the boardroom, in every aspect of everything. That's what will, you know, drive the change.
Yes, and for nothing else, the only color you think about is green. Like, it will grow the pie if you do it correctly. So you don't have to get caught up in everything that comes along with it. Just there is an area of opportunity to grow the pie and find new opportunities and to drive new business in this way and take advantage of the white space.
Amen. Okay, so I'm going to end with advice because I just got great advice. Advice on how we ensure inclusivity is at the table and representation matters.
Yeah, I guess I'll just go back to kind of the lessons that we learned at Mastercard, because it has to be hardwired into the company. You know, just putting kind of metrics or KPIs feels like it's ticking the box, and it's not organic to the company. I think you have to engineer a company that is inclusive by design and built into the system and hardwired from
Inclusive by design, really good.
My advice would just be to not be afraid to misstep. Our chief equity officer talks a lot about progress over perfection. And so just ask the questions if you don't understand, or if you're in the room with someone who looks differently than you, ask what their lived experience is and how that affects what they buy, what they do. So I think It's just really don't be afraid and hold each other accountable as leaders when you're not doing it right.
My advice to the advertising community and marketers out there would really be to let's get back to focusing on the creative. So we've got a ton of great data out there. We've got a ton of great measurement, and by no means am I not saying don't use that. But the reality is that advertising that resonates with folks is going to be effective for years and years to come. Priceless, Jay and I were talking, Priceless campaign is one of my favorite campaigns of all time. You know, I remember that. We see when creative resonates with people and is representative of communities and the worlds we live in, that it is that much more effective. And it's going to stay with people long term.
I love that. Well, anyways, this was remarkable. Anyone that has questions, I will get in trouble if I go over. So we will all be available if you have questions to find us. And thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing and being your true human selves, because that's what we need in the workplace today. You will never be replaceable. Thank God for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that was very interesting. Okay, we're gonna go do another keynote. I'll be right back.